Welcome to Dead House, the first Goosebumps book ever written. And honestly, I never really liked this story. I want to like it, I really do want to like it, but I just never have. I hear a lot of people really love this story, but I always found it kind of boring and just kind of slow to read. I kind of like the more fast-paced Goosebumps books. Not shorter ones, but just fast-paced ones like How to Kill a Monster or something like that. I kind of like Goosebumps books like this one. Not this one, but How to Kill a Monster or something like that. And this one, I don't know, just kind of felt a little boring. There's no scary stuff going on until really the end. There was a little atmosphere to it, I will give it that, but I don't know, it's just not my personal favorite. But that's beside the point, guys. Today I have a theory, though, about Welcome to Dead House, and that is that every single resident in Dark Falls is being mind-controlled, except for one. And so anyway, guys, obviously with this video comes spoilers for Welcome to Dead House, which is the first Goosebumps book in the original series. And also, we're going to be having some minor spoilers for The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, which is the 5th Goosebumps book in the original series. And, honestly, very minor spoilers, though. If you haven't read, A Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, then I'm not going to spoil anything for it, honestly. I'm just going to be talking about a certain object from that story and the powers that it has. Not really the main plot of the story. I guess you could say I am sort of spoiling some major plot points, because this object really comes into use near the end, but I honestly think it's just some minor spoilers. And so anyway, guys, back to the main topic of this video, and that is the theory. Anyway, guys, so in Welcome to Dead House, our main protagonist and her family basically move into this new neighborhood called Dark Falls. And in Dark Falls, it's kind of strange. Everything seems dead, there's shadows everywhere, and the residents there are not the nicest people, I guess you could say. They don't really go out much, and they never really spend time in sunlight. They always spend time in the shadows, and all of that. And overall, it's kind of a weird neighborhood. It's kind of a small neighborhood and all that. And so, also, before I get ahead of myself, the dog that is there also is kind of acting strangely as well, just like the people living in Dark Falls. He keeps barking at every single person he meets there, including the person who basically handled the moving of the house when the main protagonist moves into the house that is later on nicknamed Dead House. His name is Mr. Dawes, and the dog was acting crazy around him. And the dog is acting crazy around everyone around him and all that stuff, except for the main protagonist's family. And that's kind of sort of offered up as the mystery and all that. But basically, a large majority of the book, though, is just the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother just noting all the weird things that are going on in the town and all of that. And just, interacting with the other residents in this town. Like they were playing baseball or something with the other children there. But one day, the dog that they had disappeared. And so this kind of really upset the main protagonist, and mainly the main protagonist's brother, who really wanted to find their dog. And so they go out searching for him late at night one time, and then they search for him in the graveyard. And at that point in time, they meet one of the kids that they play baseball with. I cannot remember his name. But basically, he goes out to the graveyard with them, and they find a grave with his name inscribed on it. And so, they think he's dead, and then they see all the other gravestones in the area, and they see that all the other kids that they met throughout the town is also dead. And it can't be a distant relative or something like that, mainly because on the age thing, they're kids, the thing where they were only kids when they died and all that stuff, and so they think everyone's a zombie in the town. And then the friend, or, the resident in Dark Falls, who lived there for a long period of time, came out and claimed that they were right, they're all dead and all that, and basically tries to stop them, because basically his job is to keep the family from figuring out that everyone in the town are zombies, and their main goal in this story, though, is to feast on the main protagonist and the main protagonist's family's flesh, because basically they need to feed off of human blood once every year, and so once every year they invite someone to move into the house that they call Dead House, and then they murder them and, eat their blood. And so then they figure out, though, that the weakness to these zombies is light, because the main protagonist's brother shines a flashlight on him, and that murders the kid, basically. And also they meet up with the dog, but it turns out the dog is also a ghost, because it turns out the dogs in that area actually can sense dead people. And so that's why the dog disappeared, because he was murdered by the zombies. Anyway, the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother, they go home and they find all the other zombie children there, and they run away, and also they discover that their parents and all that are going basically to this neighborhood thing where they hang out with other neighbors and all that stuff, and they go to that, and basically the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother obviously want to get as fast as they can out of the town, so they're trying to warn their parents, and then they encounter Mr. Dawes, who claims to be normal, but then later on is revealed that he's a zombie, and all that. But basically they find this area near the graveyard that's basically this amphitheater, and all the zombies in the town now, except for the one who was killed by the flashlight earlier on in the graveyard, basically go to the amphitheater where they want to feast on the flesh of the main protagonist's parents and all of that. And then the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother stop that when they push down a tree, because basically the amphitheater was shaded by the tree, and so they push down the tree, all the zombies are exposed to the light, and they die, just like the one who died earlier because of the flashlight. And that's pretty much the end of the story, but as a twist, it is revealed that only one of the Dark Falls residents survived, it seems like, and that is Mr. Dawes. And so that's pretty much the end of the story. I'm sorry I kind of went in too much detail on that. I know it was like a 7-minute and 30 seconds video, and I haven't even gotten to the theory part yet. Really sorry about that. This book is super intricate, and most people I know who have read this story really like it, so, if you haven't read the story and you're still watching this video, then I guess I would recommend it to you. I just don't like it because it's kind of slower and all of that. And I have a hard time remembering all the characters in the story, because there's a bunch of kids in the whole area of the Dark Falls kids and all that stuff. I have a little trouble remembering them. And I kind of have a little trouble remembering this book as well. But anyway, so you might think, though, how come, I believe in Welcome to Dead House, all the people in there are mind-controlled? It doesn't seem like that. It doesn't seem like that at all. I mean, you could say that maybe because they're zombies, they don't have their normal self, but it seems like, just judging from the implications in the stories, they are perfectly in control of themselves, and they want to eat the main protagonist and the main protagonist's family's blood, because they have to eat it once every year. They don't seem to be mind-controlled at all. But there is some evidence in the story of Welcome to Dead House that could suggest the whole entire town being mind-controlled, except by one person who is controlling everyone else. And so, the first bit of evidence I do have, though, is the whole part in the end. So, according to the kid who's keeping an eye on the family, making sure they didn't, figure out that they were zombies, I think he calls himself the Seeker. Basically, he said himself that they were planning on eating the family weeks later. Not at this current point in time. So, of course, now that they know who they are, he's going to try to kill them, but he gets killed before he can alert any of the other zombies. So, here's my question. How come, near the end of the story, though, the whole, the parents and all of them are being tied to a tree, basically, I think, and they're about to be eaten by the other residents. If it's not for weeks, then how come they figured it out? Also, it's kind of weird that after they kill the Seeker kid, the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother go to their house, which, again, is nicknamed Dead House. They go there, and all of the other zombie friends that they had in the town who were children gathered together and basically were trying to attack the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother. But again, that's a little strange. According to the kid, I can't remember his name. I think it was Ray Thurston. I actually remembered his name. But according to him, they wouldn't attack them for weeks. So how come these zombie kids already figured out that they knew they were zombies and were sitting at the house waiting for them? That just does not seem right at all. And same for Mr. Dawes. Mr. Dawes obviously planned this in advance for the whole trickery thing when he takes them into the car at one point in the story and basically claims that he's not a zombie. He obviously rehearsed that. So he must have known at the same time that the Seeker did, or Ray Thurston, that they figured out they were zombies. But how can that even make sense? If they were all not mind-controlled, or all the zombies didn't share basically the same brain or something like that, how could that even be possible? It can't. They're planning on attacking them for weeks, but then they just plan on, oh yeah, we're just going to attack the parents now. They figure out somehow, in some way, that they are, evil and all that stuff. Unless, I think the only possibility of this ever happening is if maybe they're mind-controlled and they all share the same brain. Obviously, all the people in this town seem to have different personalities, so it's not like they all have the same brain, but I think sort of like it's a system where this brain reports to all the other ones about what's going on. That's sort of how I think it, if you know what I mean. And there's more evidence than just that. Also, in that graveyard scene that I keep talking about, Ray Thurston says himself that, or not says, but it's sort of implied that he's kind of sorry about attacking the main protagonist and the main protagonist's brother. He kind of says it almost sorrowfully and all of that. And so that might not sound like a big deal. Obviously, they may be sad because they're killing other people and all that stuff, and that's a sadder deal for these zombie people. But then you take a look at the end when they're murdering all the other zombies. And one of the zombies who was actually friends with the main protagonist said, "Thank you." And honestly, that's a little strange because of multiple reasons. So, their whole main goal in this story is to, murder the main protagonist and the main protagonist's family, which they seemingly don't want to do, but basically their main goal is to live. That's what they're doing. That's their main goal, is getting their blood and living. But then, here's the weird thing. Then, at the very end, when they're dying, one of the zombies says, "Thank you." Which is a little strange. So they're thankful for dying, yet their whole main goal of killing the main protagonist and the main protagonist's family, which they supposedly do not want to do in the first place, they're kind of sad about, yet they don't want to live. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of mixing up my words, but you see what I mean. So their main goal is to live, but they feel bad about doing that, fine, but then they want to die as well. So why don't they just walk in sunlight? Why don't they not just feed on them or something like that? I mean, at least one of them has to do that. Why didn't one of them, talk about it and share that information with the other, family? I mean, I really don't understand how one would not defect and tell them. And I don't know, it just seems a little strange and all that, and I consider that another huge piece of evidence. And also there's a piece of evidence with the zombie origin story. I did not talk about this in the video, I'm really sorry about that. But basically the origins for these zombies is that the whole entire, people of Dark Falls basically worked in this lab. And then there was something wrong with the plastic factory that they worked. It was not a lab, I'm sorry, it was a plastic factory. And something went wrong, and exposed everyone there to basically this yellow gas, I believe, that transformed everyone in there into zombies. But here's the weird thing about that origin story. There's a graveyard in that town with all the people's names on it. Someone had to have buried them before they would have to come back from the dead. That means they'd need their dead bodies and all that stuff, and that means they would be buried in that graveyard after they died. It wasn't just after they were exposed to the yellow gas, they came back to life and all that stuff. And it may seem that all of the residents of Dark Falls, basically, either, some of them did die because of the dead house ordeal and ended up like the main protagonist would have been if the story ended badly, but a lot of them were just buried because of the accident, and so that means, they died and all of that stuff, and they were buried by other people, and so it's kind of weird that they didn't come back to life beforehand. I mean, they're still exposed to the gas. How come it takes a little while for them to come back and become zombies and all that stuff? I don't know. I always found that a little strange how they built graves for them and then they just come back to life. I don't know. Maybe the zombies just build graves for themselves and for the other people. But that's, again, a little strange. I don't know why they would have that in the first place. That just confirms all the kids there of their suspicion that they're zombies. So if I were them, I would completely eradicate the graveyard unless it was already built beforehand. And so that means that someone came in after these people were dead from the yellow gas and actually brought them to life and mind controlled them. Using an object, I would say, would have to be from the curse of the mummy's tomb. So that object that I'm talking about is the summoner. And basically the summoner's job, or not job, but what the summoner can do in the curse of the mummy's tomb is actually bring people back from the dead to do whatever that, the person who has the summoner's will is. Basically, if he wants the mummy to come back to life and fight someone, then he can just raise the summoner in the air, and it will do things like that. And basically, it's a hand of some other mummy, and basically it's enchanted, and it brings other mummies back to life, and they have to listen to the orders or something like that. But here's the similarities I would say there is between that and Welcome to Dead House. I think that all those Dark Falls residents are being controlled by the summoner. And if you look at some other Goosebumps monsters that were brought to life by the summoner in the Mummy series, they behave sort of like the Dark Falls residents are implied to do in Welcome to Dead House. And that is that basically, when they were brought to life by the summoner, they honestly want to stay dead. That's why, in the end, in Welcome to Dead House, there was that person, again, I say, who said thank you when they were being burned alive, basically by the sun, by the main protagonist. And I think it's sort of similar with the mummies in Curse of the Mummy's Tomb and its sequel, Return of the Mummy. I'm not getting into spoilers for Return of the Mummy, but there is a mummy in there who did not want to come back to life. He wanted to rest in peace and all that stuff. Sort of similar to the people from Welcome to Dead House, who again just wanted to rest in peace. And you can also kind of see that with the mummies in the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. They also probably seem to be the mummies in there. There were some mummies in the end, and they seemed only to want to take revenge for the people that killed them. And then that's pretty much it. They don't want to come back to life, it seems like. And so they just did that for getting revenge on the person who killed them. And that was it. So it seems like overall that most dead people in Goosebumps who are zombies or mummies or something like that, not ghosts, like the ghosts from Ghost Beach or something like that, those guys want to live. But these people, like the people who are brought to life, who are undead, kind of seem like they want to stay dead. At least the ones who are brought to life by the summoner. All the other ones from the Goosebumps universe that we see, like the zombies from Zombie Halloween or something like that, they don't seem to share this same sort of ideal. It's only the ones that are brought to life by the summoner. But want to know another Goosebumps monster that kind of shares the same ordeal as the ones as people who are brought to life by the summoner? That is the Dark Falls residents, with them saying thank yous, being sorrowful for all that, and all that stuff, and also keeping their intelligence. Most zombies and undead beings in the Goosebumps universe are not intelligent, but the ones brought to life by the summoner, like Prince Koru, and also the Dark Falls residents, they both keep their intelligence. And you can see just a bunch of similarities between mummies and stuff like that being brought to life by the summoner and the Dark Falls residents, meaning that maybe there is a chance that these guys were brought to life by the not by the summoner. But which of the Dark Falls residents would be controlling the summoner? And I think the answer to that question is the person who lives in Dark Falls, and that is Mr. Dawes. Unlike any of the other residents, he does not seem to share those same characteristics. After all, hear me out. He's kind of crazy. He kind of seems to take joy in attacking them from what I remember in the story. It's not like he's sorrowful about killing them or anything like that. He really does seem to actively want to kill these people. And he's the only one who doesn't really seem to be nicer. And just from what we see in the story, he kind of seems to be the leader. After all, he's the one who was checking on the kids at one current point in time when they were playing baseball. I think he was in charge of them. He was watching them, making sure they didn't mess up or anything like that. And, keep the thing going. I think he was the leader. That's why he was checking on them. And that's why, of all the other Dark Falls residents, he seems to be the meanest one there. And even in the episode, according to Goosebumps Wiki, I don't know if this is correct or not, but he seems to have some psychopathic behavior. And so, out of all the Dark Falls residents in the book Welcome to Dead House, he seems like the meanest one, he seems like the craziest one, and he seems to be the leader due to him checking up on some of the residents a lot. Like when he was driving the car, again I say, in the story, and he was checking on them, probably making sure they didn't give anything away. And I don't know, just throughout the story he kind of behaves like the leader. And so I think overall that he's the one holding the summoner. And you might say, though, the summoner is in Egypt, it's Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, and in the entire story it takes place in Egypt and all of that. And so that seems very likely. But there is another hand, and also the main protagonist in the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb did buy it from basically a place in America. So there could be another hand in America and all of that. So basically, that's all the evidence I have for you guys today. And make sure to comment down below what you think about this theory. Do you think this is likely? Do you think it's not likely? Comment down below what you think. Anyway, guys, that's the end of my video, and I hope you enjoyed.